You wanted real talk, and this is where you'll hear it. Uninhibited by the toxic influences of cancel culture, unvarnished and unfettered, unencumbered by the censorship of traditional radio, uncontaminated by big media interests.
And now, Sherman Unlimited.
I got into more than a few discussions over the last weekend concerning the helpfulness of Freedom Rally 2022 and whether what began as a truckers' protest over border vaccination mandates may have served a broader purpose. And if so, whether it accomplished that well. Or maybe the question is whether they are accomplishing it well, because to hear organizers this morning, many truckers may just remain in Ottawa for a while. First, I'm already on record as saying that the demonstration, because that's what it was a form of surrogate protest on all our behalves. I'll get to the issue of offensive signs and flags and the desecration of special icons and sites in a moment, because that is incredibly important. But first, in summary, the idea that a significant display of "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore" has been long overdue in Canada, notably in Ontario, but countrywide. The truckers don't like the border vaccination mandates that they say will affect their livelihoods. That was what this was about at the incipient stages when it was being planned. It should be noted that both Canada and the United States have imposed this regulation, but there are a few items that must be noted as well. First, most of the truckers are vaccinated, as am I, and most of you hearing this. Second, I have no idea at all why we are continuing with any kind of mandated vaccination or with the vax passports now. And I say that as someone who has stood in the public square afforded me by a radio microphone and proclaimed these measures to be necessary last year. But everything is fluid in a pandemic, and that has all changed. Science is what we were told we would follow. All of our leaders leaned on that initially, and initially it did make sense. To a large extent, it still does. Well, science now says a few newer things. First, the idea of attaining herd immunity may have been a great one, but this particular virus didn't hear about it. And so it continues to spread, and not just in unvaccinated people or by unvaccinated people, but also in those of us who have dutifully had our 3 injections. True, the full range of vaccinations affords some protection from severe illness and death for the most part, and several friends and family members who have had Omicron have attested to that personally for me. Second, spread of the virus is not the exclusive province of the unvaccinated. We, the vaccinated, can also spread it. So why keep making the unvaccinated the pariahs? Our country has a charter, and it affords us certain freedoms, which I see as being denied for no reason at this point. When I believed in passports and vax mandates, I based that on the medical advice of the day. Today, none of that matters anymore. If that's the science as of now, and if Omicron cases are falling fast, and they are, why are we not simply following the UK and Switzerland and Ireland, other countries as well, in saying, look, it's been 2 years and restricting use of some facilities, irreparably damaging businesses in the name of health, leaving lifetime mental scars on a huge cohort of kids and grandkids is just plain unacceptable. We need to open things up and assume personal responsibility, and we need to do it now. If we do that, does any of this artificial and bogus damming up of human beings in their homes or in their provinces or in their countries make any sense? Well, of course it doesn't. COVID is all pervasive, so let's stop debating that. The so-called vaccine is not and never was a conventional vaccine. It's a new kind of scientific development in delivering medicine to our bodies, and it helps to the extent we can blunt bad results. But it can't and won't eradicate anything. And if that's true, isn't it time we stopped eradicating good mental health and economic productivity and stability as well? I know of families who tried hard to keep shuttered businesses alive by taking out large mortgages on their homes to cover the costs, and many will lose them now. How is that fair, especially if it went on for too long in the face of something that was never going to achieve the desired results? A friend asked me over the weekend why it took truckers to make a national statement as opposed to, say, dentists, for example. Dentists, she said, are forced to wear an N95 mask, then a surgical mask, then a visor, and work like that all day. Well, first, they're a professional group and skilled in aspects of health that involve potential infection. Always have been. and they work in close contact with us. My dentist and his hygienists have worn masks for many years, not the visor nor the extra N95, but masks. They work in brightly lit, comfortable environments, and I would imagine trucking to be a little rougher. Now let me address the issue of what was highlighted by media coverage of the weekend events in Ottawa. The Confederate flag, swastikas, parking and beer drinking at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, involvement of the Terry Fox statue in any aspect of the messaging, no right-thinking citizen can condone any of those kinds of behaviors. I find it passing strange, however, that the most vocal among us, if social media is the indicator, are the progressives who simply grabbed at any reason to denounce the entire demonstration because it seems to be supported by conservatives, and that makes it bad. What a load. What a double load of crap. Before I go on about the objectionable displays of hate, let me say that in a news conference Monday morning, the organizers said they have never had a connection with, nor an agenda connected to, any political party. BJ Dichter of Toronto, one of the organizers, noted that Aaron O'Toole showed up, that it was no big deal, and that the CPC is in need of a leadership change. They also mentioned that PPC leader Max Bernier, a kind of folk hero in parts of the country, invited the truckers up to speak with him, but they did not. They stated categorically that it was not a political issue tied to any one party's politics. Quote, "This was for Canadians, not for any political party," according to Dichter. Stories of notes handed to truckers by kids and hearty meals made by regular Canadians en route buoyed their spirits. One organizer, Tamara Leach, talked about the sea of smiles from ordinary people, and she claimed, "We have already won." Another interesting fact, according to organizer Dichter, was that the Americans had no plan to prevent unvaxxed drivers from crossing, but that the Trudeau government promoted it and got the Americans to go along. He said that would be gone when Canada drops the various restrictions, as it surely will. Why? Because the Canadian supply chains depend on us. Now, I was once a reporter myself. I've covered dozens and perhaps hundreds of demonstrations. There was barely an event of this kind that didn't feature what I'd call the bad apple group. In other words, the majority of participants were respectful and well-behaved and continue to be. But a few were unruly. They were foul-mouthed people who wanted to attract attention from the media to themselves for reasons inconsistent with the stated purpose of the event. That's being a bit too kind because the fact is there are almost always agents provocateurs embedded in political demonstrations. That fancy phrase means that people are often planted by opposing forces to reflect badly on the majority. And by the way, all sides do it. Given the piss-poor quality of the Canadian news media, anyone who follows this kind of story knows the mainstream media are instantly drawn to the one or two bad guys and not to the thousands of good guys. Bottom line here is that the good guys way outnumbered the bad guys in Ottawa. I myself listened to radio communications, recordings between truckers. Designated leaders were instructing others on expected behaviors and rules of engagement. So let no one say that any of that was left to chance. It isn't any surprise that liberal and left-leaning politicians and fellow travelers simplistically and dishonestly want to wipe this event away because some idiot flew a swastika or someone parked near hallowed military ground. This is not indicative of the attitude or the objectives of the rally, nor of the majority of attendees. Organizer Dichter mentioned support from Eastern European truckers who have long memories dating back to socialism. They see it growing in Canada and they reject it, he says. He also said that Sikhs had contacted them to say, "We came here for freedom. Give it to us." They wanted to illustrate the diversity of their support. And the three leaders doing the news conference on Monday morning were a Métis woman, a Christian Central Canadian, and a Jewish Torontonian. That's BJ Dichter. Have a listen.
I was mortified last night when I saw there's an organization called CIJA, and CIJA is run by a guy who thinks he's going to be as a liberal senator. And he'll do anything and say anything that Trudeau does to get him into that position. So I go to CIJA. These are the leaders of my community. They're pathetic. They really are. They're what's fueling anti-Semitism in Canada. Because somebody pulls up some random, we call it the hoax hate. You hear this hoax hate all the time. Oh, somebody painted a swastika on a trash can. It's backwards.
We owe the organizers a debt of gratitude. They sent a message we should all buy into, that we are growing incredibly tired of authoritarian governance in the face of something that vaccines have not and cannot eliminate. COVID for now is here to stay. We have some marginal lifting of the tight measures imposed on us a month ago coming into effect as we enter February, and more at the end of the month. That's partly because the powers that be have been advised by their scientific and medical people that the caseload is falling. I might editorialize and add the word markedly. If you throw the numbers into an Excel spreadsheet, I'd say it's fair to predict a return to the autumn levels of reported illness before the end of February. Anyway, let's hope so. There are those among us who have been terrified by all of this. It is probably safe to say that included all of us at one time or another over the past 2 years. Most of us got ourselves out of that frame of mind, and we were provided with sufficient factual material to understand COVID. But some remain terrified. I know of several people who still fear leaving their homes, and a couple who just won't. We all notice those folks driving alone in their cars, wearing masks by themselves. We all know people who wouldn't join us at the sidewalk patio cafe restaurants during summer and fall because even out of doors made them afraid. What the Truckers Group on Freedom Rally 2022 did for Canada was to shine a light on what we must all face. We are approaching what for the moment is likely to become the best we can achieve in living with COVID. I think it will approximate normalcy, and I'll express a hope we can all share for two things. First, we should cross our fingers that some new and very deadly variant does not surface. And second, we can bear in mind that research by geniuses does go on, and in all likelihood, medications will continue to come along that will either put an end to COVID once and for all, or at least make it no more fearsome than a seasonal flu. I'm Peter Sherman. Find future episodes wherever you find your favorite podcasts or by visiting SHURMANUnlimited.com. So if you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you really liked it, tell 3 friends. If you really hated it, tell 3 enemies. We'll talk again soon.